Welcome to the channel Adventures with Angela. Please like, share, comment, and please subscribe. With the pumpkin season soon approaching, there's no better time to indulge in ghost stories around the campfire and lift the spirits from the cold ground. Literally. The internet is full of alleged true ghost stories, and while some scary stories may be based on actual events, many of them are just the fruit of people's imagination. Either way, real or not, they are creepy and menacing nevertheless. Whether it's a sleepover with your gals and bonfire party soon to turn spooky or a Halloween shenanigan, there are plenty of short, scary stories to fill the evening and creep things up. With All Saints Day just around the corner, now might be the perfect time to cuddle up with some real ghost stories and accept that some higher supernatural forces are beyond human comprehension. I have compiled plenty of scary stories to tell in the dark that will leave you feeling uneasy. While some creepy stories found online claim to be real, take everything you find on the internet with a grain of salt. Let me know whether you have a ghost story to share. If so, leave it in the comments down below. The Shadow. I didn't know that what it was called until much later. I was living in a house in Laguna Beach that had been there since the 1920s. In its history, it has been a speakeasy, a brothel, and a house for smuggling illegal immigrants. One day, my new wife and I were having an argument. I can't even recall what it was about. She walked down the block to get a cup of coffee and cool off, and I was in the house alone. There was a bedroom and a living room on one side, then a bathroom, then through the bathroom was a hallway that had windows in one side and two entrances. On the other side of the bathroom was a hallway that had windows in one side and two bedrooms on the other. From my bedroom, I could look across the hall into the bathroom, then through the bathroom down the other hall. I was standing at my dresser, and I just noticed movement out of the corner of my eye and looked down there. There was, and honest to God, it still gives me goosebumps just talking about it 17 years later. A black figure. It was maybe 3 foot tall, black scribble, like someone had scribbled a human shape, but the scribble moved like electricity. That's the best way to describe it. There was no sound that I could remember. I distinctly remember when I saw it, I wasn't afraid. I was just like, oh my God. Then it noticed me looking at it. I can't say it turned around, it just focused on me, I guess. Then I was scared. It didn't move, didn't scream, nothing. I was just frozen because it just came at me. It rushed down the hall towards me. I have no idea what it intended, but as soon as it entered the bathroom, the door closest to me just slammed shut. I screamed. I yelled for my wife. She wasn't home. I went outside into the daylight and didn't go back until she got home 10 minutes later. I don't believe in ghosts. I don't believe I saw something supernatural, but I know I saw something. I don't know what it was. The door that knocked. Mark was alone in his apartment when the knocking started. Soft at first, like someone tapping a pen. He ignored it, but the knocking came again, louder and more urgent. It wasn't from the front door. It was coming from inside the apartment, from the closet. He froze, heart pounding. He didn't have anyone visiting, and he lived alone. Slowly, he approached the closet door. The knocking stopped the moment he reached for the handle. He hesitated but pulled it open. The closet was empty except for his old coats and shoes. Relieved, he closed the door, but the knocking started again. This time, it was right behind him, on the apartment's front door. It knew my name. Ethan was walking home through the woods, a shortcut like he always did. It was quiet, too quiet. The air felt heavier than usual. As he passed the clearing, he heard a voice whisper his name. Not a shout, not a call, just a low whisper. Ethan. He stopped and looked around, but saw no one. His chest tightened. No one should have known his route. He picked up the pace, telling himself it was just the wind. Then it whispered again, Ethan. Closer, and it was behind him. The forest was empty, no footsteps, no rustling, just an awful voice, soft and slow. Ethan started running. He didn't stop until he reached his house, slamming the door and locking it. His phone buzzed, a message from an unknown number. "Why did you run?" He dropped the phone. Later that night, he heard the voice again. This time it came from his closet. He approached slowly, heart pounding. When he opened the door, nothing was there. But inscribed across the black wall in black marker was his full name, first, middle, and last. And beneath it was written in smaller letters were the words, "I've always known you." He never used that shortcut again. Not that it mattered, it still called. The cold hands. Sarah always slept with her arm dangling off the side of the bed. It was a habit she never thought twice about. One night, just as she was drifting off, she felt a hand gently grab hers, and it was cold. She smiled, half asleep, thinking it was her little brother playing a prank. She whispered his name, but no one answered. The hand squeezed tighter, and she snapped, fully awake. She yanked her arm back and sat up, heart pounding. The room was silent. Her door was still closed, and everything looked normal. She reached under the bed with a flashlight, but saw nothing but dust. Still shaking, she tucked herself under the blankets and tried to calm down. Minutes later, just as her eyes began to close again, she felt fingers wrap around her waist. This time they pulled. She screamed and rolled out of bed, landing hard on the floor. There was nothing there, but across her wrist were 5 fingers, frostbitten marks. The next morning, her parents found her bedroom window wide open, though it had been locked. Sarah never let her arm hang off the side of the bed again, but some nights she still wakes up to the feeling of something cold brushing her finger. The Whispering Doll. Lisa found a doll at a garage sale, sitting alone on a dusty shelf. It had old faded lace, glass eyes, and a mouth sewn shut with black thread. "It's from the 1800s, the old woman said, but she doesn't like to be ignored." Lisa laughed and bought it, thinking it would be perfect for her antique shelf. That night, she placed the doll by the window and went to bed. At 3 a.m., she woke up to whispering, soft, constant, like someone muttering just below her ear. She checked her phone, no calls, no messages. She was alone. The next night it happened again, whispers just barely audible, but always there. She unplugged everything, still they came. By the 3rd night she had enough. She stormed to the shelf and picked up the doll. The thread over its mouth was missing. Its lips were slightly open. Lisa threw it in the trash outside and locked the door. But when she woke up, the doll was back on the shelf and it was laughing. The thing in the mirror. Tessa had always hated the bathroom mirror. It was tall, cracked, and slightly at the edge and seemed to hum when the lights were off. One night after brushing her teeth, she noticed her reflection blink just a second too late. She laughed nervously, chalking it up to exhaustion. But as she turned to leave, her reflection didn't move. It stood still, head tilted and eyes fixed on her back. She turned around quickly. The mirror was normal again. Over the next few nights, it got worse. Her reflection would smile when she didn't, raise a hand while hers stayed still. One time it mouthed something silently. Tessa leaned in close, trying to read its lips. It said, "Let me out." She covered the mirror with a sheet and refused to look at it again. But late that night, she heard a faint tapping coming from the bathroom, like fingernails against glass. When she finally got the courage to peek in, the sheet was on the floor. The mirror was fogged up, though the room was cold. Written in the glass was one word, "Closer." As she backed away, she saw something move behind her, but when she turned around, nothing was there. Only her reflection, and this time it wasn't alone. The mirror in the attic. Lacey has always been drawn to mysterious and old abandoned houses at the edge of the village. Locals whispered about a woman who had vanished decades ago. Her spirit says to haunt the house. Determined to uncover the truth, Lacey decides to explore the house one stormy night. As she stepped inside, the heavy wooden door creaked shut behind her. The air was thick with dust, and the only light came from her trembling flashlight. She moved cautiously through the dimly lit hallways, her footsteps echoing anonymously. In the attic, she found an old mirror standing against the wall. The mirror's surface was covered in dust, but as she wiped it clean, she saw her reflection change. Her eyes filled with fear and her face turned pale. Suddenly, the mirror began to glow faintly and reflection started to shift. Lacey saw the ghostly figure of a woman standing behind her. Her eyes filled with sorrow. The woman whispered, "He's coming for me again." Lacey's heart pounded as she tried to leave, but the door was blocked by an invisible force. Panic set in as she realized she was trapped. The whispers grew louder and the air grew colder. In a desperate attempt to escape, Lacey stumbled through the darkness and found a hidden passage leading to a small room. Inside, she discovered a dusty journal. As she read the entry, she learned that the house was haunted by the spirit of a woman who had been murdered by her husband and was trapped by a dark curse. Lacey managed to find a hidden door and escape, but the whisper followed her. Even now, she can still hear them, reminding her that the spirits are always watching. The thing under the bed. A young girl fears something under her bed, but her parents assume it's just her imagination. One night, unable to sleep, she feels something soft brush against her hand dangling off the bed. She smiles, thinking it's her doll. Then she hears it, a voice, barely a whisper, coming from below. "I'm not the doll." Her breath catches in her throat as she bolts upright. Pulling her hand back, she glances at the foot of her bed where her dog is fast asleep, curled up peacefully. Trembling, she slowly peers up under the bed, half expecting to see nothing. What she finds makes her scream. A figure twisted and grinning, its hand still reaching for her. "Don't open it." Nikki's grandma left her a single box after she passed away. It was old, wooden, and locked tight with a rusty latch. Taped to the top was a note in shaky handwriting. It read, "Don't open it." Nikki laughed nervously, thinking it was some weird family joke. Still, curiosity gnawed at her. For the first few nights, everything was quiet. Then she started hearing tapping, soft, slow, coming from the shelf. Each night, it got louder. Sometimes the box shifted on its own. One morning, she woke to find it on her bed. The latch was undone. The note was gone. She quickly locked it again and shoved it in her closet. And when she opened the door, the box was sitting in the middle of the floor. Lid slightly cracked open. She peeked inside and saw nothing but darkness, deeper than it should have been. A whisper slipped out, "Thank you." The lid slammed shut by itself. Nikki screamed and tried to run, but something grabbed her ankle. She never made it out of her room. Now the box sits quietly again, waiting for the next person who won't listen. The smiling woman in the back seat. When Jason picked up a hitchhiker on a lonely country road, he thought he was doing a good deed. The woman was pale with long black hair and a wide, unnerving smile. She didn't say a word. She stared at him through the rearview mirror. After a few minutes, Jason felt uneasy. The woman's smile never faltered and her eyes never blinked. He tried to make conversation, but she still remained silent. When he glanced back again, she was gone. Relieved, Jason pulled over to check the back seat, but it was empty. He convinced himself he imagined her and continued driving. That's when he heard it, a soft rhythmic tapping coming from the trunk. Panicked, Jason stopped the car and opened the trunk. It was empty. But as he turned back to the driver's seat, he saw her in the reflection in the rearview mirror. She was sitting in the back seat again, her smile wider than before and her eyes pitch black. Jason slammed the door and sped off, but the tapping continued. When he finally reached home, he locked the car and ran inside. The next morning, he found the car doors wide open. On the back seat was a note written in smeared red ink. "Thanks for the ride." A week later, Jason's car was found abandoned on the same country road. The back seat was covered in handprints, and the rearview mirror was cracked. Locals say they still see a pale woman with a wide smile standing by the roadside waiting for her next ride. The Whispering Forest. When Emily and her friends decided to camp in the Blackwoods Forest, they ignored the local legends. The forest was said to be cursed with whispers that lure people deep into the trees, never to return. On their first night, Emily woke up to the sounds of faint whispers. She stepped out of her tent and followed the sound, thinking it was her friends. The whispers grew louder and more urgent, leading her deeper into the woods. Suddenly, she realized she was alone. The forest eerily silent, and the trees seemed to close in around her. The whispers returned, but this time they were inside her head. "Stay with us," they said. Emily tried to run, but the trees twisted and shifted, blocking her path. She stumbled into a clearing and froze. Dozens of hollow-eyed figures stood in a circle, their mouths moving in unison with the whispers. The last thing Emily saw was her friends joining the circle, their eyes hollow, their voices blending in with the whispers. The Creepy Playground. A group of friends decided to explore in an abandoned playground rumored to be haunted. As they entered, they noticed the swings moving back and forth despite the lack of wind. The atmosphere felt thick and heavy and heard distant laughter. When they took out their flashlights, they caught a glimpse of a shadow figure darting behind a tree. Suddenly, laughter turned into frantic screaming. They fled the playground, vowing never to return. The Crying Woman Under the Bridge. In a quiet rural town just outside of El Paso, there's a bridge locals avoid after dark. It arches over a slow, murky river that glistens under the moonlight. They call it La Llorona, the Bridge of the Weeping Woman. Decades ago, legend says a woman named Maria lived nearby with her 2 young children. Her husband abandoned them for a wealthier woman, leaving Maria heartbroken. One stormy night, consumed by grief and rage, Maria took her children and watched as the current dragged their little tiny bodies away. The moment the silence returned, the horror of what she had done shattered her mind. She threw herself in after them, but the river spared her. Maria was found days later, her dress soaked and her eyes was bloodshot from crying. She spoke to no one, only whispered her children's names. Days later, she vanished and her body was never recovered. But the crying didn't stop. To this day, people say if you walk across the bridge past midnight, you will hear soft sobs rising from below. Some swear they have seen a woman in tattered white gown standing near the edge, her long black hair dripping wet, her face twisted in sorrow. If you approach, she vanishes into thin air unless she mistakes you for her child. One teenager claimed he had heard her whisper, "Where are my children?" Before icy fingers gripped his ankle and dragged him towards the railing. He never crossed that bridge again. Locals leave offerings, candles, flowers, and even toys, hoping to appease her restless spirit. But every so often, someone brave or foolish enough walks across that cursed bridge and hears her cry. Footsteps. I was resting on the couch facing the wall when I heard the shuffling of my wife's feet approaching, so I turned to greet her and came face to face with her grandmother, a sweet lady who passed away 15 years ago. The closet thing. Blake hated the closet in his new room. It was tall, too narrow, and always slightly open no matter how many times he shut it. Every night just before he fell asleep, he would hear a soft scratching from inside. His parents told him it was mice, maybe pipes, houses made of old noises, they said. But Blake wasn't so sure. One night he set up his phone to record while he slept. The next morning he played it back. For 6 hours there was nothing. Then at 3:11 a.m. the scratching stopped and a voice whispered, "Are you asleep yet?" Blake locked the closet that night with a chair pressed tight against it. At 3:11 he woke to a soft click. The chair was on the floor. The closet was open, empty. He didn't sleep after that. Days passed. No more sounds. Maybe it's over. Then one night, as he pulled back his blanket, something cold brushed his feet. He jumped out of bed, looked under, nothing. But when he turned towards this closet, It was closed. From inside, voice whispered, "I like your bed better." The Forgotten Lullaby. It started on an original night. I was brushing my teeth before bed. The bathroom silent except for the hum of the fluorescent light. As I rinsed my mouth, I caught a flicker of movement in the mirror behind me. I turned around, but the room was empty. Shaking it off, I leaned closer to the mirror to inspect a spot on my face. That's when I noticed my reflection wasn't moving with me. It stood perfectly still, its eyes locked on mine. My heart skipped a beat. It tilted its head and its lips curled into a gruesome smile. My breath hitched as it raised a hand and pressed against the glass, its fingers elongated like claws. The reflection smiled wide and revealing rows of jagged teeth. Then it spoke. Its voice growled that seemed to echo from the depths of the mirror. "You're not alone." I stumbled backwards, knocking over the soap dispenser. The reflection lunged forward, its face continued into a mask of pure malice. I screamed and bolted out of the bathroom, slamming the door shut behind me. For days I avoided the mirror, covering it with a towel, but the shadow didn't stay confined. At night I would hear faint screaming, sounds coming from the bathroom, like nails dragging across the glass. One evening I mustered up the courage to peek inside. The towel had fallen and the mirror was fogged up, except for these words that scribbled across the surface: "Let me out." I sold the house soon after, but I still see it sometimes in car windows, storefronts, and even my phone screen. The shadow follows me, its hollow eyes always watching, waiting. In the darkest nights I hear its voice whispering, "I'm still here." The writing on the wall. A young boy lay sleeping in bed when he heard footsteps outside his room. He peeked out to see what was happening. When his door swung open to reveal a murderer carrying corpse of his parents. After silently propping them up on a chair, he wrote something on the wall in blood of the dead bodies. He then hid under the child's bed. The child got scared beyond belief. He couldn't read the writing on the wall, and he knew the man was under his bed. Like any child, he pretended that he slept through the whole thing, and he hadn't woken up yet. He lay still as the bodies quietly hearing the breaths from under the bed. After an hour passed, his eyes got adjusted to the darkness. He tried making out the words, but it was still a struggle. He gasped when he finally read out the sentence, "I know you're awake." He read as he felt something shift underneath the bed. The light. We make fun of little kids for one thing, leaving lights on everywhere. They turn lights on every room and as if it's some sort of security blanket. And if you ever force them to turn them off, they cry and scream and eventually you give in. The only time they turn them off is with their parents. They feel safe, so very safe. I'm the monster that lives in your closet. I'm friends with the one under your bed and the one in the shadows. When you see us, you flee to your mommy and daddy. But we're not here to hurt you. We're here to protect you. If you think we're scary, just wait till you see their true form. They masquerade as one of you, and you can never tell. You humans must be blind. Your true monster sleeps down the hall. They pretend to love you, but it won't last. They try to convince us to let them out. But don't worry, we really love you, and we will protect you. So when you see a shadow, flint, or a figure in the closet, remember, we scary monsters protect you from the human ones, so you're safe with us for now. The Slit-Mouthed Woman. In a small town, rumors spread about a strange woman with a surgical mask, asking children if they think she's pretty. One evening, a boy encounters her while walking home from school. She steps into his path, her voice soft, almost sweet. "Am I pretty?" He nervously nods, but her hands lift the mask, revealing a gruesome, jagged smile carved from ear to ear. "How about now?" She hisses, stepping closer, paralyzed with fear. The boy stumbles back. Before he can scream, she lunges at him, her scissors leaning in the dying light. The last thing he hears is her laughter, echoing through the streets as darkness swallows the town.